Good morning. Welcome, Philadelphia, to another Ask the Expert show. Can you believe I got knocked off the air? But we're here, we're back, and I see a smiling face. Good morning, Miss Angela.
Morning, Steve. It's been way too long.
It has, between hurricanes here in South Florida in November and you with your traveling. It's been a crazy, but we've provided a show every week like we always do. And by the way, you look beautiful this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank
You're
you.
back home now, right?
I am. I am in Philadelphia in my new home office, new home. I know you moved as well, unfortunately, right into the eye of the storm, but uh, all my travels have avoided hurricanes altogether.
So, Angela, first of all, I've got to start off with, tell me what's going on in the Senate with marriage now.
So yeah, the Respect for Marriage Act, it recently passed, and it does a lot of things that are good. And then it's important also to highlight not what's bad, but just what it doesn't do. Okay. And then what people should be aware of ultimately. So what it does do is it will require the federal government to recognize marriages for the rights and privileges, the federal rights and privileges. So regardless of where you are in the country, if you are legally married and were legally married in a state where it's recognized, you will be able to avail yourself to the federal benefits associated with marriage, which are significant. Anything from immigration rights, right? Being able to marry someone in a different country. That's actually a federal law, federal benefit. Bankruptcy and everything involved if you were to declare bankruptcy, and if you're married versus not, and your spouse's protection, that's all federal. Social Security benefits, huge, right? So a lot of the financially significant benefits are federal, and no one would be denied those. And what it doesn't do is it doesn't require a state like Alabama, who, if Obergefell was overturned, Alabama would not have marriage equality, would not pass marriage equality. Alabama would be very happy with the fact that Obergefell was overturned and it didn't have to perform or allow same-sex marriages. And this doesn't require Alabama to do so. But if I am an Alabamian, I don't know what it's called to be from Alabama, but if you are from Alabama and you want to leave Alabama and come to Philly to get married in Philly and then go back home to Alabama, it does require Alabama to then recognize the person as married for the state laws of Alabama. So now that Alabamian now has Alabama state laws because they came here to Philly to get married, so they can avail themselves to the state privileges and benefits of Alabama, and they can avail themselves to the federal laws and benefits because it required the federal government to recognize it. Now, it's also important to note that the only reason it went through with such a high proportion of Senate voting for it is a few Mondays ago, 3 or 4 Mondays ago now, a bipartisan group of senators met and agreed upon significant religious protections. Okay, now for those, this is radio, so you're not seeing my air quotes around the word protection, but within the LGBTQ community, we hear religious protections, and to us, that means discrimination. Okay, religious protections equates discrimination a lot of the times. So there are significant religious protections written into the bill that we don't quite know how it will be utilized. It's also important to note that this is all academic as of right now. This whole exercise is academic. There's been all this news. Steve has heard about it, despite the fact that I haven't spoken to Steve in a month, which means, right, it's all over the news.
Yes.
And yet Obergefell is still law. So we still have marriage equality around the country, and it'll take at least 1.5 years to 2 years for a case to work its way up to the Supreme Court, for a case to be before the Supreme Court, for the Supreme Court to overturn Obergefell, to even make this Respect for Marriage Act matter. It's completely academic.
Wow.
It has absolutely no power. It does nothing. It's absolutely irrelevant as of now for the next couple of years. So, in my opinion, the a lot of the politicians that were in favor of it, it was a political thing to
Uh,
garner hope, to garner momentum. Post Roe, very depressing. Let's do this thing. But, and so they did, and it's in place, but it's purely academic because nobody needs it yet.
wow. I did not know that.
Right. It does nothing. It does nothing. And it's not very often that you pass a law to anticipate maybe 2 years from now, another law will be overturned, and then we'll have this in place for when that happens. Okay. So now my concern with that for us is that right now we had a good makeup of senators that made it doable, the numbers mathematically of like Republicans, Dems, and who was for it and who wasn't, and whatever. But 2 years from now, if that makeup is any different, they could easily overturn this just as easily as they passed it. It can easily be overturned. So in the next 2 to 4 years, as we enter into a presidential election with a DeSantis or a Trump, and then potentially a whole new makeup of the Senate, that we just need to be careful. But so this was completely preemptive.
People don't know
And
that.
what's
Angela,
that?
people do not know that. They
Mm-hmm.
just accepted that it's been, I mean, the Senate voted for it. It's going into law. And that's not
And
really
it is,
true.
but it does nothing. It is,
Yeah.
it's going into law, but it really has no effect because
Wow.
we have all of those rights as of right now.
That is, well, now has the president signed off on it yet?
I don't think it's even passed the House yet. So it
Okay.
passed the Senate, needed to go back to the House. So it passed the House, went to the Senate back down to the House, and then the president's desk. So I'm not
So,
quite sure
how do
where
you
we are with.
personally feel, Angela? Are you discouraged?
No, it's definitely a win. I mean, I made all my posts and everything I've written about it. It's definitely a win. If nothing else, it takes the temperature of the United States, citizens on the topic, and we're 72% in favor. So as each of these types of topics come to the forefront, it's important to have a national dialogue on them. And that's what this exercise gave us, was a national dialogue on it. And also, a lot of people don't know that there were oral arguments on a case yesterday at the Supreme Court around it's 303 Creative versus Ellenis. And there were oral arguments on it yesterday, which means we'll hear in June. Usually that's when this Supreme Court gives us LGBTQ cases. They like to give us either the pros or the cons of whatever the answers are during June, which is Pride Month. So win, lose, or fail, we always get our answers on our cases during Pride Month. But so oral arguments on this particular case were fascinating. I haven't read all the transcripts yet. I'm a dork, but I didn't get through all of the 500 pages since yesterday. But that case is a web designer who filed a lawsuit saying that she didn't want to have to put together a website like, Angela and Diane's wedding.com or
This is
something. And
like the
like,
baker.
exactly. It's the baker, but it's around web design. The
Okay.
baker said you know, he was using creativity to create the cake, and that he shouldn't have to put in that sort of creativity into something that he believed was inherently wrong and against his religion. Same holds true for a web designer, the graphic design artist, creativity, right? So, but now it's really honing in. The bakery case was very narrow. The facts weren't good in order to really make a decision on whether or not someone who owns a business can say, no, I don't want to serve you as a consumer or as a client or as a vendor, what have you, because I don't believe in same-sex marriage. So that is not the decision that we got in the Baker case, because of what the issues were. The holding was very, very, very narrow. This case is not, the facts are perfect for the Supreme Court to have to make a decision on that. Does this graphic designer have to make this website about a same-sex marriage, despite the fact that she doesn't believe, per her religion, thinks it's immoral, and doesn't want to have to put in her creativity into something that she thinks is immoral. So it's going to be fascinating. So to answer your question, am I encouraged? I'm encouraged about the Respect for Marriage Act because it's a win, and we need wins whenever we can get the wins, even though this particular win right now really doesn't do anything, substantively. It's there, it's on the books. If Obergefell gets overturned, it will be there. And then the religious protections will get litigated, and there'll be fights then. When Obergefell gets overturned, then people will be able to sue about the Respect for Marriage Act, and we'll sort of take it from there.
Okay, so Angela, I need your help bad. Something I've never discussed on the air. I'm a believer. I go to church. God's the most important thing in my life. But I also respect that if you want to marry somebody, same-sex marriage, that you should, even though the Bible says somewhat different. But here's my question. How do we make it right for everybody, that everybody's happy? We respect religion. I mean, because I do, because people who believe in the Bible and I'm one of those. But I also believe in same-sex marriage, which my church isn't happy about. Is there a way to make everybody happy?
Yeah, I mean, you live in Florida, and let me ask you this. You live in Florida. Do you like seafood?
Yeah.
Living in Florida? You're right. Do you eat crabs and lobsters? And right. So those are crustaceans.
Yes.
Right. And right before it says man shall not sleep with man, right before that it says man shall not eat crustacean. Right. And so right. And so, and I mean, I love me some lobster. Okay. And so so the Bible is not word for word on anything, right? So that right there. But with that said, even if you didn't eat crustaceans, or even if you were just, word for word a Bible believer, everything the Bible says, I live out. Okay, you can do that within the privacy of your own home,
yes.
Right? And what we do in commerce, what we do out in society, and in this capitalistic nature of just, right, like Canada, you take Canada, for instance, there's so few of these issues in Canada because I don't know where the idea of the United States being the melting pot went awry, but the United States was founded to be a melting pot of diversity, of people from all over, and that the United States was welcoming the melting pot, right? But it's not. Everybody is so focused on what their identities are and separateness. I am different from this person. I am separate from this person. I am African American. I am Italian American. I am Irish American. I am, right. And it's like, kiss me, I'm Irish. No, you're not. You're just American. Like, right. But in Canada, there is no African Canadian, Italian Canadian, Irish Canadian. They're all just Canadians. Right. And so that how can we all be happy? How can we all get along? Is if we truly stop looking for the separateness and how you are other from me, how you are different from me. I mean, this is not a legal answer. This is not my lawyer answer. This is sort of my human answer, right? We're all human. We're all sharing this planet. We all have differences. And that's that. There are a lot of people that are very adamant anti-LGBTQ advocates who are on their third marriage, which is technically not per the Bible. And, and so if you really hone in, it's like, don't throw the first stone. Living in a glass house, and we all live in glass houses. And if we all live in a glass house, no one is immune to that. And so if we just got rid of all the stones and the glass, right? So that I could just go through and sort of touch you,
Right.
right? I think there'd be a lot more, I sound hippy dippy saying this, but a lot more love in the world and a lot less vitriol. So
We
that
just got
is
a
not the legal answer, but
we just got a
it's
text from somebody. Um, listen, I don't know what their beliefs are, but they want to know, and we'd not planned to go this route, and we're gonna in the second half of the show we're gonna get back into estate planning. But this listener wants to know, why couldn't a person just go somewhere else to have their cake made or their website made? I know you got
um,
an answer for that.
right. And that person is probably listening locally from a large city, right? I'm in
Yes.
Philadelphia, you're in a large city in Florida, but um in smaller towns, especially let's say a very small town in Alabama, just to keep using
You
Alabama as
always
my
use
example.
Alabama.
I do,
Always.
I do. I need to
Your
go
ears
there.
are always ringing with you.
I know. I've never even been. I don't even know if they're called Alabamians. I will
But
look
you
at that up.
will soon. You will be in Alabama soon.
Exactly. I'm going. So those people in particular, the small town with the bakery cake, or there was a wedding dress issue. There was also a case around a wedding dress, and it was the only bridal shop within 3 hours of them.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it is not like you just walk another 3 blocks and you hit another bakery, or there's 19 web design agencies or whatnot. So in smaller towns where it's harder to be out, right? And because they tend to be more conservative in very small town, the person may have to drive a long way to go find, for me personally, within a large city, I like to what I call recycle the pink dollar, right? Like, please let me know that you're homophobic, because why would I give you my money? I
Right.
haven't been to Chick-fil-A in 9 years. I love their waffle fries, love them. I still dream about them, but I will never spend money on waffle fries from
And I
Chick-fil-A.
understand that.
Right. And so, but if I'm in a large city and you have an anti-LGBT sign and I now know you're homophobic, I will absolutely skip you and go to the other hardware store and buy
I
a hammer and
understand that.
spend $5 at the other hardware store and recycle my pink dollar. And that's why, even as a lawyer, when some people say, oh, you're an LGBTQ lawyer, people go to you just because you're gay. And I'm like, some people do. Yes, absolutely. Like, they're gay, I'm gay, and it just feels comfortable and feels right, feels aligned the way that,
And you understand too, Angela.
exactly, exactly. Right. So some people will go to Starbucks, others will purposefully patron a small coffee shop. Right. And so there are a lot of lawyers out there, but some would rather patron an LGBTQ lawyer. I understand. I know we can discuss all the topics without stuttering over LGBTQ. So yes, I totally get that. And for me personally, I would skip that baker. I would skip that wedding dress store, and I would go
Right.
to a different web designer.
But if you're in a
Um,
rural area, you don't really have that choice. So
exactly.
that makes sense.
Exactly.
I'm going to say something that I never thought I would say ever, 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 ever. But we change, we get educated, which I think more people should be educated, because I wasn't. And I got to tell you, I totally, totally endorse Angela. Um, and not just that she works with the LGBTQ community and she has experience there, but I have learned over the years with Angela, she's just a very, very fine attorney. And if you'd have told me 5 years ago that I would be endorsing, and I'll admit it, I have nothing to be embarrassed about. I was an idiot. I totally endorse Angela. I endorse what she's doing. I endorse what she is about to do. because what she's about to do takes a lot of guts. But
Tell this story quickly about your friend who came out in the sports
oh yeah, I mean, I
industry
had
and
a client.
how that so because you and I met a few years ago and you were a very different person when I met you then.
Oh
You
my
had some
God.
evolving to do and some learning, and you were completely open to it. But
Yes.
but
That's the key,
that
Angela.
also impacted you.
That's the key, is being open to it. Because, on the one hand, my church is saying one thing. And, listen, I've always admitted, just because you're a believer, and I'm Jewish too, but just because you're a believer, boy, we sin all the time. I mean, we are not perfect. And there's some things in the Bible, and this is one of them that I have a problem with, because I am for equal marriage. I am. But I learned it from you, Angela, and it takes education. And I did. I had one of my players, I mean, who came out of the closet. I was shocked. And I think before I met you, I would have really been down on him. I mean, I admit it, I would have, like, what is wrong with you? But I understand now. And I never thought I would. So I think, first of all, people need to, I mean, it was just like AIDS. People were not educated. I mean, you remember that. People were afraid of everything. And the education, and that's what we do with this show. That's what Angela is started and getting ready to do. And she's going into the beast's mouth. She jokes about
Alabama.
Alabama, but that's going to be a tough place to start. But it's
Hmm.
about education. And Angela, I got to tell you, whoever is using you, whether it's whoever, they pick the perfect person, because the way you explain is you don't put people down. And it's just like, you should have been a professor in this, but you just happen to be a great lawyer, though. And I got to tell you, and I could really get in trouble doing this because we have all kinds of experts, but if I'm part of the LGBT community, I want you to represent me. But even if I'm not, I want you to represent me, whether it's estate planning, business law, employment law, family law. And we wanted to talk about estate planning today because there's so much, but
So this was a
I got
good
on the
catch up.
tangent. I'm sorry.
No, no, this is a good
It's
catch
all
up
over the
session.
news, with
Yep.
what the Senate has done, and as much as I try to keep up with it, I didn't know if the president had signed off on it. So we still have a ways to go, but now I understand more, Angela.
Hmm.
There's a lot more to this than
There is. And to your point, it's all about staying open, right? And it's all about treating one another with respect, both personally and professionally, as we'll see, what happens with those Supreme Court cases in terms of in the workplace or in commerce, but yeah, we have a ways to go just as a human race, just as people loving and respecting one another. And then what I can do as an LGBTQ advocate to make life a little bit easier for the LGBTQ community as we navigate this political climate that is unfortunately full of vitriol um, and is inherently unsafe, especially for LGBTQ kids. So we all do our part, but to have people like you, allies, you're a true ally now, and I've watched you evolve over the years, and I've
thank you.
watched you stay open. You still stumble over LGBTQ, but I
Yes.
love you. I
Well,
love
I
you
try
for
to
it.
ask questions that people where I was, like the
3 years
listener
ago.
just now, would want. We have questions, and because we don't understand, but
Hmm.
you help us to understand, though.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you.
I can't believe this is not where we had planned to go today, and we've got questions for our next show now.
There you
Uh,
go. Next week, estate
yeah.
planning.
So tell people how they can reach you and about your social media and your podcast.
Sure. So you can find me on social at Your Gay Lawyer. On Instagram is my handle, Facebook, Philly Gay Lawyer. You can call the office at 215-645-2415. And you can go on my blog at lawyer.lgbt.
Angela, you're the best.
You too,
I'm so
Steve. Good to
glad
see you.
we have you. And we'll see you next week.
Be sure to tune in every Tuesday at 10 o'clock a.m. when Angela Giampolo is the guest on Ask the Experts on 860 WWDB AM and online at WWDBAM.com.